Good morning. In today's lesson, lesson 18, we are covering 3.1 in the syllabus, which is about the markets. Firstly, we will look at a definition for a market, and then we will look at different types of markets. But before I start with that, I want to discuss your questions that you have answered in lesson 17. The first question was on the bull market. What is a bull market? If you look at the stock exchange and they talk about the bull market, this is a market where the prices of shares are, they predict that it is increase or will increase, or it's already starting to increase. This is normally a market where you are encouraged to buy as quick as possible and then wait until the price even increase by more and sell then the shares that you have to make or to maximize your profits. Then the difference where we look at a bear market in a stock exchange, a bear market is where the prices are dropping. So if you do have shares, this is the situation where you sell as quick as possible because you want to get rid of that shares to minimize your losses. The second question is the difference between a preference share and an ordinary share. You can see that we only have allocated 4 marks to it. So 2 for preference shares and 2 for ordinary shares. So what you can say about a preference share is that it has a fixed dividend that you receive. It is indicated on the share certificate as a percentage. So, and if the company profits was not enough to pay you this dividends, it will accumulate to the next year. So it means then they will pay you next year's dividends plus this year's dividends. Another important point is that in the case of ordinary shares, they only get dividends after debenture holders and preference shareholders will pay. But an ordinary shareholder can vote where a preference shareholder can't vote. But you can continue with this and you can even answer a question on this up to 8 marks. So it is advisable that you do a little bit more research to be able to answer a question of 6 or 8 marks. Then if I ask you a question of what is speculation or a speculator, what is that? So that is a person that buys shares at a low price and sell it at a high price. That is his job. That is how we maximize his profits. So you can, people that is speculators where we come to cattle, they buy up when the prices is low, like now on the market, and they sell it when the prices is high. And that's how they maximize their profits. So the last question I've asked you, what is a stockbroker? A stockbroker is a person that are registered at the stock exchange. And if you are interested to buy shares on any company that is listed on the stock exchange, you can only do it through a stockbroker. So you give the stockbroker the instructions, you tell him in what company you want shares, at what price you want to buy it or sell your shares, and he acts on your behalf. And for that, he earns a certain amount of commission according to the laws in the country that is set for stockbrokers. They all earn a certain percentage commission. Okay, that is only for interest's sake. Then there was other questions, research questions, which I've asked you. I have just put in brackets there as a note that you must remember, if you buy shares, you become a shareholder. And the meaning of a shareholder is that you own part of that company. So the more shares you have, the bigger part of the company belongs to you. So taking that into consideration, and they ask you, what is the nominal price? So you know, if you buy shares from a company, you get a share certificate. On the certificate, it indicates that you have bought, say in Namibian breweries, share number 101 to 150. So that's your shares. But on that share certificate will be a price at which the shares were originally issued. And that price on your share certificate is the nominal price of that share. Then, if I ask you what is the market price, that is if you go to the newspaper or to the internet and you look at share prices and you look Namibian breweries, you will see what is the price worth today. And that is the market price. That market price, in brackets, is determined by the demand for that shares and the supply for that shares. So at this time, Namibian breweries is very profitable. Their exports to South Africa have increased by a lot, if you read the newspapers. So investors will be interested in buying shares from Namibian breweries, because they know that the prospects of even achieving higher profits is very good. Okay, then we look at what dividends is. Yearly, you receive sometimes half yearly also. They pay preliminary dividends or final dividends, and that is a part of the profit that go to you. This dividends is determined on the amount of shares you have and the type of shares you have. So if I talk about a dividend, I talk about what part of the profits they pay you as an owner of, say, Namibian breweries. Okay, and the last one is yields. In short, that is your return on your investment. So say, for example, you had invested 100,000 and your dividends were, say, $100, then you can calculate what your return on that investment was for this year. And you can then calculate for yourself, is it worthwhile to keep my shares in that company, or must I rather move it to another form of investment, like a fixed deposit in the bank, for example, or invest it in a more profitable business. Okay, now we have covered the questions that you have answered in lesson 17. So we will start now with the markets. So the first question, if I ask you what is a market, you must remember a market is not like in the old days anymore, or don't have to be like that. That you go to a certain place and there all the buyers and the sellers meet each other. It don't have to be a specific place. It can be like our stock exchange where everything is online. It is not a building where you go and you find all the buyers and sellers like in the old days. So what is a market? It's a place where the buyers and sellers come together and where they negotiate on the prices of the products that they demand and what the producer is able to supply. You get fruit markets or vegetable markets. As I've said, you get a stock exchange market where there's buyers and sellers of specific shares. You get a meat market. You get auctions where they sell cattle. That is also a place where the buyers and sellers come together. And that is a very good example in Namibia because we know about that. You get in towns in Istanbul, in Turkey, for example, spice markets. So there is lots of different markets, also money markets. You remember when we have talked about the stock or the exchange rate? You remember we have said that it also has to do with the demand and supply of a currency. So this is also found in a money market. Okay, then we have three types of market structures. The first one that we will discuss is a perfect competitive market structure. Then we also get a monopoly or a monopolistic market, and we get a monopolistic competitive market. Now you have seen all these markets, they are around you, you have experienced them. So as we discuss, you will pick up which of the businesses that you know, how you can allocate them in one of these three markets. So we have perfect competitive market. An example of this market is where hawkers sit on corners and sell, for example, fruit and vegetables. That is a perfect competitive market. In our town, in the center of the city, there are people selling wooden art. That is also a perfect competitive market. Now, what is a perfect competitive market? There are lots of small firms, and they sell exactly the same products. So a lot of them have elephants, or wooden elephants, or wooden rhinos, or wooden giraffes. So they sell the same type of product. Then, so if you think about a consumer, there's a lot of choices in this market for a consumer, because you can first look at this elephant and say, oh, but I don't like the way in which they have produced this elephant, this wooden elephant. I will look at other options, or I don't like the price, or I don't like the type of wood, or whatever. So you have a choice to go to other types of firms. Then in this market, the knowledge and information on these products is easily available. So if you think about a fruit market or a vegetable market, it will not be very difficult for you to discover where they buy the fruit, where the vegetables is coming from, at what price they got this fruit and vegetables. That is easy for you. Okay, next point that we can look at in a perfect competitive market is that they are price takers. What that means is they take up the price of the market. The market consists of a lot of firms. None of these firms in this market have any influence on the market. So they can't control the price. They can't control the output, because they take up a very small part of the market. And then if we look at advertising, they actually say that this market don't advertise. But if you go to Cape Town, for example, and you go to the fruit markets there, you will see that the people do advertise. There's somebody that stands in front of his stall and he's shouting and saying that we have the freshest oranges, or our bananas is the cheapest. So that's how they advertise. They sometimes put on a small board their prices. That's also a form of advertising. I actually believe that they must advertise because they sell the same product as the other stores. How will they get a client to buy from them? Telling the clients that they have the friendliest service, for example, is also a type of advertising. The last point is barriers. You can't talk about barriers if you don't give examples of barriers. Otherwise, you will not receive marks for that. Now, what is a barrier? That is something that prevents you to enter this market or exit this market. So if you enter this, we talk about barriers, in this perfect competitive market, barriers is very low or non-existent. So if you want to start a store on a corner and sell fruit and vegetables, what do you need? You need perhaps a table and an umbrella, and you need money to buy the stock. That's all. So the capital that you need for this is very limited. So that prevents very few people of entering this market. So say, for example, you take a wheelbarrow and you sell mealies. What do you need to start this business? You need money for the wheelbarrow, and some of people also buy the mealies on that wheelbarrow, so you need money for coal, and then you need money to buy the mealies. And then you can start your business. Very little capital to start up a business like that. If you want to leave it, nobody will prevent you of leaving it. If you have a store where you sell fruit and vegetables, you just stop buying stock. You stop going to the spot that you have put up your table and your umbrella, and that is the end of it. Nobody will prevent you of doing that. So it's very important that you realize at this point that we have looked at the number of firms in this market, we have looked at barriers, we have looked at the choices available, and we have looked at knowledge and information on this market. And then we have talked about price. Who sets the price? Are they price takers or price makers? And then we have looked at advertising. And we have discussed it for a perfect competitive market. So we will do exactly the same for a monopolistic market. Also discuss that point, and for a monopolistic competitive market. So if you study it, just remember that you cover these points.